Clarendon Boulevard, which is right here, was pretty much, you know, a people-free environment where cars just kind of shot through, and everything on it was, you know, the sides of parking lots, the backs of buildings, the dumpsters, and that kind of thing. And that's the site where the parking lot was before. This is Clarendon Boulevard now. The parking lot was here, and as you can see, it's retail on the ground floor with residential over it. This is actually the point at which you saw that first picture was looking this way. And again, retail on the ground floor, residential over it, park on the outside of it, residential properties. And on the back of it, transition to townhouses and a park to the single-family neighborhood a block away. This is what Virginia Square looked like right when the metro station opened. You can see one building, and there's the station entrance on a parking lot. And it looked kind of like that. And now it looks a little different. Again, to emphasize the development pattern, here's a picture somebody took from a window of a plane and then sent me of Ballston. It's actually the Ballston, Virginia Square area, though. So this is Virginia Square, this is Ballston. There's a metro station here, there's a metro station here. This is what you saw in that first picture. There was only this one building. The station is actually over here. So you have these two stations, and this is the Ballston development. And as you can see, everything else around it is basically still the same density that it was a generation ago. Obviously, the emphasis is not only on buildings, but on the environment for people. It has to be very pedestrian-oriented. It has to have good public spaces. People want some greenery. And again, on the edges, we pretty much line with the townhouse-type development to transition to the neighborhoods. Here's an aerial, again, at the time the station opened, of Ballston. And you can see there's the station entrance. Again, these were parking lots, basically. One thing I will point out is, if you've been to Arlington, that's the IHOP. And here's the Ballston area today. And you can see where the station entrance is. The IHOP is still here. It's unfortunately just out of the picture. The IHOP is still there, though. Let's see. And again, it's mixed use. Within walk of the station, you have everything, not just office. We have residential. You can see residential properties in various places. It's almost every other building, really. I mean, if this is office, this is residential, this is senior living, this is an office building, and so on. And we have plans for, this is going to redevelop. And there's going to be a new west entrance to the station to complement that one. We actually already have the escalator wellway put in for the development. Where's Brian? Mr. Coulter's company, JBG, is someday going to build, right? Brian and I have done a lot of work to get an entrance in here, and we're maybe halfway there. This is the so-called point. The first mall in Northern Virginia was Parkington. Parkington, see, that tells you what it's about, right? And there it is, Parkington. This is what is now known as Ballston Common. But you know, you can see from the great vintage automobile here what year you're looking at. And this was the Heck Company, which, you know, was the big department store. And now I want you to see, and this is a parking lot in front, right? So now here's what it looks like on the same point today. This is the Heck Company, now Macy's, but that's the same building, although they added on to it. The parking lot is here, the AES headquarters with Ted's Montana Grill down here. And this is a building over our mall, Ballston Common. We added, there's this office building, there's another office building on this side. This is the E-Trade Bank headquarters. There's another office building behind it over here, and then on the far back there's the new Iceplex where the Capitol is headquartered. You can skate and so on. Now on the other end we have the Jefferson Davis corridor, the blue and yellow line corridor, and basically there are two stations. There are four stations, but one's Pentagon and one's the airport. In between we have two urban stations essentially. And in that area there's about 12.5 million square feet of office space, about 12,500 housing units. Again, you can see here's the cluster of development, the river, National Airport, there's the tower, and again the neighborhoods at lower densities just blocks away, pretty much as they have been. Unfortunately, Crystal City's an example of how not to do a lot of things. A lot of it's like this and this. It's not so much Crystal City as Concrete City. But we are changing it. And you can see that along, for instance, Crystal Drive, this used to be the backside of some of that concrete. It's now got retail frontage, sidewalks you can walk on, and streets that go both ways. We also had, again, from that earlier development, sense it's density and you got a big building, but basically you've got a suburban condition with parking lots between the street and the building, and a sidewalk that isn't really a place you want to walk, and there's nothing really there. So the proposal that came in was to build on the parking lot, put the parking underground, and basically line the street, creating an urban condition and new sidewalk and all that. And we said okay to that, and they actually built it. So this is what we're doing in a lot of in the Crystal City area to create a more walkable, pleasant environment. We've had a massive effort to redevelop it. This is the biggest replanning project that I've seen, I think, that the county's done for the entire Crystal City area to reposition it. Mostly prompted because the BRAC process a couple of years ago, we were the #1 hit in the country, losing about 18,000 jobs, some of which are coming to Government County. Others that were going to Fort Belvoir are now going somewhere in Alexandria, so they're unhappy in Fairfax. But we basically said, okay, they're going to vacate this place. We're going to have to refill it. In order to do that, it's going to have to be a better place. And so the developers, the owners of the property, and the community have been working together. Task force mostly completed its work last December, and so we have a concept that, among other things, puts better connectivity in here, more streets through, not unlike what was just being talked about with regard to this area, because that is part of the problem. It will involve more density because you got to pay for this, although we have much agita about how much density is okay and how much isn't, and what's necessary to actually pay for what we want. But this is underway. The Pentagon City area, this is what it looked like before everything started, when the Pentagon was here, here's the river, here's Shirley Highway, and pretty much this was an industrial area. These were warehouses. This was Western Electric, which is now, if you've ever been to Costco, Price Club in Arlington, that's it. And this is the mall site. So there wasn't a whole lot there. If you look at that now, again, here's the Pentagon, here's the mall site, and here's the Western Electric site where Costco is. And this is the Pentagon Row development, which is Federal Realty Investment Trust. You may have heard of them. This shows a little bit better kind of what's happening, and the Pentagon's over here. This is Pentagon Row. This area here is a big park, and basically the original deal put density over here near the station, and we got a fair amount of parkland reserved in this area. But this over here was done since I'm on the board, and it really was, originally this part, after the mall was built, was going to be just like this, which is to say tall suburban apartment buildings set back. And they came in with a proposal to create a more urban environment, trading off some of the residential density for retail density at the time, and creating something that had ground floor retail, at the street with apartments over it, public plaza, skating rink in season, and if you walk under here, you can go straight through the mall and over to the Metro Rail station. Potomac Yards is the old rail yard for the RF&P. Most of Potomac Yards is in Alexandria down here. There's a big box over here you may have seen, movie theater and so on. But the Arlington portion here is at the south end of Crystal City. So that's Crystal City here, and this is the old rail yard. And basically, we, for some years now, have been working to transform this into a new neighborhood. We got a plan put in place in 2000. It's about a 45-acre parcel. We planned in a park in the middle, a transit way through it, a mixed use of residential, commercial, office, hotel, kind of everything. And much faster than we expected, all the sites came in for site plan. And as of a year ago, December, every single one of them was approved. It's going to be a total of around 4.5 million square feet of mixed use. As I said, that we built a transit way into it. One of the issues here is that we only have the Crystal City Metro station, and you're really too far from the station. So how do you accommodate this development? Because it's beyond the quarter mile. So we decided we have to have surface transit to connect everything. And we built a transit way through it because we also don't have any possibility of connecting to New Highway, although the parkway is over here, but they cannot, by law, connect to the parkway. They had to make a deal with the Park Service on that. So they actually absolutely have to have a high level of transit trips. And we put in the plan a goal of 40% non-auto travel. And in order to ensure that that would work, we built in a transit way so that we'd ultimately be able to have transit that could move through here, even though it's on the surface, at a very efficient level. and attract a lot of riders. Okay, so here's an aerial of this is the area we're looking at. This shows it under construction. This is a while back now. This building's completely built. This one's built. This one's under construction. These got built, and now there's hotels going underway here. There's a few here that haven't started yet, and maybe slowed down because of the current environment. But this shows it as it was getting started. These are the first buildings finished. The north end that EPA has now moved into. I think that's the first gold LEED building in Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. But you can see in the foreground here, this is the transit way. It's just got grass on it now, but we're working on putting a streetcar in there. So that's the transit way, which will have stations and take you right into the buildings. Now, let me say a few things about some areas that aren't in the metro corridors, but in which, as I said, we're trying to apply the same basic principles of essentially smart growth and what some people call new urbanism, but it is kind of just urbanism. One of them, in both cases, what we want is compact development. It's not going to be as dense as the metro corridor because it doesn't have metro delivering it, but it can be compact development, and it can be, by certain measures, dense. Walkability being the main focus, and the use of transit to get there. So Shirlington is a case of what was just one block, basically, of an old shopping center. It's located off I-395. How many people have been to Shirlington? Okay, so you have an idea what it is. So it's outside the metro corridor, as you can see, but it does have really good bus service and good access because of the highway. Here's an aerial to give you an idea. Again, this is the river over here. Here's 395, and this is where Shirlington is located. And this is what it looked like about midway through. You see this big, huge area, half of it, nothing but asphalt. That's what it was. And basically the idea was to extend the street through the former parking lot and create a whole, basically a doubling of the development. It's about 25 acres. That's what it looked like when it was built in the 40s. And it really, that block had become a really popular place. Everybody talked about it. But it was just restaurants and a movie theater, really. And so the idea, again, here's a look down, and here's the highway. Here's that one block right here. And this was the old Best department store and the movie theater. This got torn down a few years ago after they went out of business a recession or two ago, and so this was nothing but parking lot. And most of the rest of what surrounded it was parking lot. I mean, that's basically asphalt for that, supporting that one block. We want to put the transit center in over here on this parking lot area here and transform the rest of it by using structured parking in basically 5 different garages that are behind the buildings so that the area becomes walkable. Along the existing movie theater, which is basically blank, we use liner retail. And part of the deal was creating this new civic building at the end, which is the library on the ground floor and theater above, Signature Theater, which I hope you've all been to. We basically built the thing and rented it to them. I mean, they're paying for it through a lease. And so you have the theater, which itself is a draw, and this was also Federal Realty, incidentally. And they wanted the theater in part as a draw, so there'd be more reason for people to come here. We made a deal with some adjacent county property so we could get the land for the library, and they could get some of the land for the parking garage. And this is the library building. Again, the theater's on the second story. And the new street with active side, this is Busboys and Poets. As you can see, restaurants, storefronts. It's an urban condition, walkable, friendly condition, but it's also an all-purpose community because now it's not just restaurants. There's office, but also people live there. And we've integrated it so that this is a Harris Teeter grocery store with the, I always forget if this is the apartment and this is the condo. One's a condo and the one next to it's the other. The last thing being built, or the office building was just completed, and there's a hotel, which is the very last bit of the development that was approved earlier this decade. Altogether on the 2 blocks, you've got about 1,000 residential units, 300,000 square feet of retail, 600,000 square feet of office, the library and theater I mentioned, the hotel. And it's all in about 2 blocks next to a highway in the space that takes up about a quarter of a clover leaf for a suburban interchange. And the new transit center opened last year. About 400 buses a day go through there, about 2,000 people getting on and off. We're adding more bus service starting next month. Our goal really to turn it into like a metro station, that you can go there and connect to the other places with that kind of frequency. You can get to Pentagon City in about 14 minutes or so. You can get up to Ballston as soon as we get our extension through in the coming year. You'll be able to, in a month, well, maybe a month and a half, be able to go from here to Courthouse, where I work. I'm looking forward to that. And then the last part I'll talk about is Columbia Pike, which is the part that was left off of the Metro map. In the 60s, when they first were planning Metro, the blue line was to have gone out this way. And if you're familiar with this area, you have Skyline here, and then you have like Lincolnia. If you look out, you see these areas where these big tall buildings pop up. They're places where they were originally going to have blue line stations. And they got some big buildings, but they didn't get Metro. So the blue line, was a cost-saving measure. Basically, it was just paired up with the L line there. And this Old Main Street kind of got left out of it. And it's the densest area of our county that isn't anywhere